Good morning and a very warm welcome back to Morning Express. We're glad you're watching. It is time for The Way It Is. We're discussing the big stories that we've been covering for you in the past couple of days. And joining me in studio this morning, we have lawyer Ambrose Weda, who's to my immediate left. We also have three senators this morning. Mutula Jr. Kilonzo, who's Makueni County. We also have Kiambu, Senator Kimani Wamatangi, and Hassan Omar, Mombasa Senator. And Ambrose, one would imagine this is a sign from the Lord that come 2017, yes, Senate is where you should be thinking.
I already feel power. I feel it.
Yeah.
This is enough quorum for a committee meeting.
This is enough quorum.
We can pass some resolution of sorts.
All right, so let's begin with what has been a big event over the weekend in Nyeri. I know you're not Catholic, but just from what you've been reading and following on the beatification, she's now been beatified, Sister Stephanie. What is it Kenyans can pick from this? And what was your take home from this, Senator Omar?
Really, when I heard about this beatification, I read everything that I could possibly read. Because you see, in life, when situations present themselves, you take an opportunity to understand better the religions of others, cultures and traditions of others. And particularly also to understand Sister Irene Stephanie. What I found, who's now called Blessed Irene, what I found extremely amazing is had just sheer dedication in the last century to come into Kenya, to learn the language, Kikuyu language, to be able to communicate within it, and to be able to, to live in a very turbulent time. Because I think I believe that was the time when, if we are now seeing some of the fruits of development, that must have been a very fairly underdeveloped era in comparative terms towards the place she came from in Europe, that is Italy. So I think in my assessment, it also brought to glare, part of the Catholic traditions, which I believe is one of the strongest church in the world. It's a leadership that I think one cannot ever ignore. The Catholic leader is today one of the most popular leaders in the world, Pope Francis. If you look at the history of the Catholic Church, it has been attributed to liberation, particularly in Africa, in Kenya. No, not anymore now, unfortunately, with the leadership that we have. But if you look at the times of Cardinal Tunga and Ndingimwana Nzeki, if you look at liberations in Philippines, Jane Cardinal Sin, if you look at just John Paul himself and his role to dismantle the Soviet, communism, was amazing.
All right, Weda, your thoughts?
I looked at it. I wish they were doing that ceremony for Professor Wangari Maathai. These others, I didn't know much, but as far as religious traditions are concerned, it was okay. Although as a Christian, maybe it is rooted more in the religious tradition than in the Word of God, which is the Bible, where saints are every person in the body of Christ, not individuals being elevated to levels. But to the extent that is a church tradition, I hope they will move from there. Then another 10, 15 years, they'll beatify Wangari Maathai, who actually did things that I wish, if we were giving tickets here, direct for going to heaven, we would have actually given that ticket to go to say, admit her. I recall when I was young, when Wangari Maathai was being killed somewhere in Karura Forest, telling us that nature is cruel, it will punish us. And we thought it was a joke. We thought the lady had gone mad.
Okay.
Several years down the road, it is now a global problem.
But she's a Nobel laureate, so in her own right, she was recognized in that sense. So this is a whole religious matter. So I guess
I thought now she's in the heaven realm, so that if it was a question of going to heaven, we would have started with her.
I guess she's already in heaven, perhaps watching this. And then also, chap, we saw Senator Kilonzo in that region ahead of this ceremony. There was so many activities to ensure that Nyeri was spruced up.
That's, I was going to say that you put words in my mouth. First, I want to say that it was really a solemn ceremony. But it also confirms something that maybe the leaders who are here and Ambrose, once he moves from being a sugar daddy in the board to leadership, that
you might want to clarify for the people.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a member of this. He was appointed into some body about sugar. The point is the point is that the deeds, the things that we do, the good deeds that we do, and I'm paraphrasing a fable, the good deeds that we do will be recognized way after we are gone. And that is why they say that the good deeds that you do as a leader will be written on a brass plate, and nobody will ever take it away. It's a lesson for us, but right. For the Catholics, I think it's a good move. It is something, the solemnness of that ceremony. I want to pick it up from him. The fact that somebody somewhere recognized the actions of this lady 85 years ago is something that we must celebrate. And just to remind Weda that this decision was made outside the Republic of Kenya, and that's the reason why we must start by recognizing people in a shorter period than 85 years. Yeah. But to congratulate the Catholic faith, the manner it was done, it's really a lesson. But for Nyeri County, we want to see that traffic lights are put up even when you don't have ceremonies.
All right. Well, Matangi, finally on that.
Yeah. What is the most amazing lesson for me in this is that just to imagine that these young nuns actually leave their country. This lady left Italy at a very tender age, and they come here and get engrossed in local issues and commit at any cost. And in the course of that service, now, for example, like for Sister Irene, after you read her history, you see in the course of that, she died actually, as it was reported, while resuscitating a victim of plague. I mean, that is the ultimate that somebody can go to show commitment to what they believe in. But I think the greatest lesson I would want our people to learn is that it pays to commit. It pays not only in this world in non-material rewards, but it is important also for us to commit to good causes. So I think it's a good lesson, especially for our young people in a society where we have extreme issues right now about our youths being delinquent, you know, radicalization, and all those kind of things that are rising to our youth. We need to let them learn those kind of lessons.
Just one thing, I was also in the Mata Hut run over the weekend at Mombasa. I was amazed by a story of Sister Mary, who works in slums. She arrived in Kenya in 1976, and has worked in slums in Kenya through and through. Now she's facing a contempt of court proceedings together with others because of somebody who grabbed land nearby and they decided not to obey the court, so something like that. So
the hospital. Yes, the hospital in Langata.
Absolutely. This kind of sacrifice. Sister Kathy, who is also a board member of the Mata Hospital, who is a trustee. And I think people are doing such enormous good things which must inspire all of us.
All right, let's talk about graft matters. Today, those 60 days have lapsed, as was given by the president. The CEO, EACC, is asking for more time. I see you're smiling, I don't know why, but we'll get to your thoughts on that. However, the former prime minister is saying this is all lip service that's been paid to the Kenyan public in as far as this whole matter in fighting graft is concerned. 4 cabinet secretaries should know their fate this week. Also, Senator, I think it's Sonko and Lamu West MP Julius Ndegwa. So just status update on where they stand. It was a total of 175 names that were on the list. EACC has been able to look into 56 files, have only forwarded 21, and the 60 days, as I've mentioned there earlier, gone. What do you say, Kilonzo, to those 60 days now have lapsed? They want more time. How does this play out in essence? If more time is not granted, first let's start there, by the president, they'll of course still continue the investigations. Of course. Just that people will not be forced or asked to be out of office. Is that correct?
This was never serious from the beginning, and you realize the statements were lofty. The tone was absolutely serious. The following week, there was this shenanigans of the commissioners resigning, etc., etc. What you saw yesterday, the idea, why would every newspaper headline have a headline story about a file leaving the office of that gentleman who was issuing a press conference to the DPP? That's not the way the law is supposed to work. That is not, it's nothing. It means nothing that he has prepared a file. The most important aspect of this is the work of a director of public prosecutions. But we must remember that as we are doing this, these people who you splash their names on the headlines are still innocent. And two, the fact that we have no commission as we speak today begs the question as to whether what this gentleman who you have given so much attention is doing is of any value to this republic. Because we have an issue about how the way the list was forwarded, who forwarded it and how it was done. So I also repeat that this is absolute lip service, because you, in the process of all these things, files are moving to the DPP, he says, I have no case against so-and-so, I have no case against so-and-so, I have no case against so-and-so. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, the 60 days that deadline was just a deadline. It was just another 60 days, because these processes take a little more time than they appear to have taken. But what did you expect when the following week or the day after the commissioners were being forced to resign or being offered ambassadorial appointments by state functionaries? These people are joking with corruption.
All right.
Yes.
So Senator Wamatangi, the argument from what we're hearing even with Raila is that this was choreographed to fail from the very beginning, that this was a scheme, it was just PR, as we'd hear some quarters look at it. But at the end of it, in terms of a real commitment and fighting corruption, that's not there from the government.
As Kenyans know from the history of some of these speakers, because none of them is new to the public arena, and the CORD leader and the others who are commenting are not new. And the history of how they operate, their commentaries, their thinking towards such actions is known. I mean, it's not rare to hear the CORD leader making such comments before. I mean, he's made such comments, but you know, this is the dividing line. That do they make these comments just to gain political mileage? If you ask me, was this a serious process? I mean, why would one argue that a process that we know has culminated into 4 cabinet secretaries sitting home waiting for their fate, which is still unknown, several PSs suffering the same fate, including even advertising of those PSs jobs just in anticipation, and thirdly, even having some of even our own sitting members, including our own senators, being prosecuted. I mean, how would one say that process is not serious? And if you look at, for example, the deadline, we are all talking about the deadline, the 60 days are over. Now, what we need to learn as a country, when the president gave that 60-day ultimatum, now he was trying to introduce a firm sense of urgency to say that we have to look at things differently, that unless we put thresholds of time, then this could be business as usual. But it is not. And I would want to beg to differ with my colleague here on especially the processes now as pertains to what the commission is doing. I mean, we know this process. First, it has to be an investigation, and I quite agree that all those people are innocent until proved guilty. So how do you prove somebody guilty? It is you investigate, then you move the files to the DPP, then the DPP will make his recommendations after perusing the files, and then you move to court. And that is the process. That's what has been followed now. And I want to say this finally, that since the history of fighting corruption, and we remember all the history of P.O. Lumumba when he was there, we remember when Aaron Ringera was there, and this time when Mumo Matemo has been the head of this department. If we were to be sincere as a country, and I think I would want to urge that we quit cynicism on issues about this country that require us to bond together to attain a common goal for the good of the country. And so I think
But
we should all...
Is there a commission? You know, you should answer a fundamental question according to your government. Is there a commission?
My colleague here sits with me in the Senate. The easiest way to establish if there is a Senate is for, if there is a commission, yes, is for my colleague to come to the floor of the House and pose this question, and this is investigated. The fact is that there exists a commission, even in the absence of those three commissioners, because what will happen is that they need to recruit new ones.
Working.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll bring this to you, Senator Omar, and ask this. Isn't it dishonest for those criticizing this process to ask for this firing and ask for tougher action to be seen to be done when there is due process and must be followed? These people are all innocent as they stand now until they're proven guilty. Yes. So why is it we're asking for these extraordinary measures of just get people out of office?
First and foremost, if you want to realize that the Jubilee is not sincere, you do not let a litany of almost 5-6 cabinet secretaries be caught up in the web of corruption. For 2 years, we've told them, you're stealing, you're stealing. Look at this SGR thing. You guys are ripping us off, you're ripping us off. I think then there was a point at which the chorus against Uhuru had become so, the goofs were just too many. So when corruption is peeling him away, insecurity is peeling him away, the ethnic character of government is peeling him away. So I think he needed to do something extraordinary. And if you want to know how they play to the gallery, you do a State of the Nation address, and the first people who receive this shame, so to speak, is the media, before even Parliament itself receives it on Tuesday next week. So there's some people go make photocopies as spin doctors of the presidency so that they can now start to create the ground. Only for, so what happens, it's the same thing which my brother Junior here is talking about. So also the spin doctors are at work again. Yes. They've given you all these dossiers so that they can go create a chorus of headlines to make it appear like, you see, we're moving. And 60 days are here. I was smiling because one old man was telling me, these guys were not sincere. Siku za mwizi Kiswahili ni 40 sio 60. So beyond that, the thief is free. So I think they realize that somebody will go to court, and challenge the composition of the commission, because the commission is commissioners. That's why it's called commission. Yes. You know. So I think what happens is that's like a board is the board of directors. Yes. So I think what happens is that somebody's going to court and is going to stop this whole process. In fact, we saw it last week. I think last week but one. So this is a whole choreography of events. Then you try to hound out of office very people who, you know, the committee. I talk to COD members who sit in the committee on legal affairs. They tell you they had already agreed that there was no case to answer. So suddenly, so they wanted to dismiss the petition. The next day, they all come flaring up, and the Jubilee says, no. They literally alter the course of discussion, and now now recommend to the president to set up a tribunal. So the circus is what Matangi wants us to believe is a sincere process. You see, we are not
so
gallery. No, just a minute. We are not gallery people. We're not gallery people. We're not gallery people. We are more critical.
You'd have been more critical. Would you have then, say you were president today, would have come in and fired all of these people?
Absolutely
would
not.
Have had due
Listen,
process,
what happens is we present. You see, in terms of now the euphoria you want to build around your sincerity, is that why now you make it appear like you're sacking everybody, telling everybody to step aside? Because you have no other strategy. The only other strategy is to appease the national psyche. When you want to appease the national psyche, so there is also a possibility of miscarriage. A few people have been cleared already. I've been hearing Kimemia, who we thought probably was the epitome, the epicenter of corruption himself has been, I heard it's been cleared, Orengo has been cleared, a few others have been cleared, Kingi has been cleared. We've been reading this thing.
But
before we polarize,
Orengo is
has been cleared.
No, so if you just let one issue here.
You can't win arguments that are based on constitution.
Hold on, Omar. I want to bring in Weda on this one. He has not spoken, and Weda, because we've also been seeing interviews being conducted by PSC for PSs. So in essence, preparation for a pool that the president could pick from in the event some of these people lose their jobs. Is that to show that they're serious on this, that they perhaps intend to see some people out, or is it still PR?
Actually, unless people expect the president to address in Uhuru Park just to show his commitment to fighting corruption, if a man forces a large number of his cabinet and PSS to step aside, he boldly takes a list to Parliament. Unfortunately, he took the list to the wrong place. Because those who are supposed to help him fight corruption, those who are involved in oversight, are parliamentarians, the senators and the National Assembly members. But they can't because they are earning illegal salaries. They forced government to give them forcefully. So they are guilty fast. And they know it, and that history, you will have to live with it. The president himself has shown the muscles. He needs your support. He needs your support, and he needs everybody's support. But instead, you people are circumlocuting, oh, the president has done this, oh. I can tell you, you can see it. If all of us joined the president fighting this corruption, we'll deal with it. But everybody is guilty.
Let me tell you
Who's
something.
this high priest that Raila is talking about? Because he seems to know these people in government that are the ones supposed to be on this list of shame, the ones supposed to be prosecuted, and not the ones we're seeing.
IBC is one obvious one.
Let me tell you.
But isn't that, don't we now have the IBC chair being investigated?
Sophie,
that whole
Sophie,
was a blank gap.
Senator.
Let me tell you. It's called PR. You know what you do? The president issues a lofty statement, appears to be in a bad mood when issuing the statement. And then what do you do?
To a standing ovation from both sides of the House.
Because we look like, you know, there's
started,
something happening.
started by Kalole. I mean,
you know,
they're the ones who
and then
started
what
the
do
standing
you do?
ovation.
You then take the cameras, the theater of the action to integrity, so that you then watch people walking in and walking out, walking in and walking out. What does that tell you? First, it tells you that the president did not follow due process because he named people before they were interviewed. That is violation. And I'm glad that now Senate has approved the Fair Administrative Bill, because you cannot name people before you give them an opportunity to be heard. You heard what his own cabinet secretary Ngilu said about, for example, Waitiki land. 2, if you look at the cases and you look at the list and the dates when these issues were reported, some of them is 2014. The deadline the president gave was PR exercise, because this information was available at EACC in some cases in 2014, in some cases in 2015. Alfred Kiter is on record talking about the SGR. So why give the 60 days? The files were already sitting. So the fact of the matter is that this is just choreographed, and it has gone back to the headlines. More choreography. Chances are that they are going to take people to court, possibly 2 people, you know, and all the cameras again, theater of the absurd is going to go.
So who's the high priest? Back to that question.
Who was being mentioned?
Yes.
I don't know. You know,
by
Raila.
Raila.
By Raila himself.
Because it's Raila who knows these people.
The high priest exists.
Do you know the high priest?
I don't know the high priest, and even if I knew,
Sophie,
and they know him.
Sophie, one of the most amazing things about this court group is their ability to, without blinking, tell lies, masquerade, and change facts to suit what they want to say at the time. Just imagine, you hear my colleague here, Senator Omar, and my colleague, Senator Mutula, looking at these cameras and speaking about SGR.
And I didn't blink.
Who in court would speak about SGR and corruption perceived or real in it from court? This is a project that was actually started, mooted, mapped when they were in power, when Raila was the prime minister of this country.
Is that
if there is anybody who should bear the first responsibility, it is the leader. And no wonder, as you're asking, he is the one who's seemingly naming names silently, saying there's a high priest, that one is supposed to be there because this was in their time. And I'll tell you this. Out of all the current cases of corruption, which are ongoing right now, there is none that does not have an appendage, a history to the time when they were in power. And I shudder to hear them even attempt to speak about ethnicity. They almost nationalized ethnicity at their time. When they were in power.
The thing about Matang is that it's very unconvincing.
Let it finish. Please, finish.
Yeah, Sophie, I hope I'm not under obligation to convince Hassan Omar, because
there's a public
Hassan Omar is a bad student. I mean, in the first place, he cannot learn from the mistakes of his predecessors in court. That's why you find he's repeating the same story, the same
Omar
narrative.
asked this to you on the high priest. Please, I want that question answered, because you said you know who it is.
I'll come to the high priest question.
Yes.
You see, these guys always keep saying this is not our corruption. Trust me, all this execution of the SGR, the grant planning, the whole idea, the conceptualization was done during Kibaki Raila administration. Then the execution, don't run away from the facts, my brother.
No.
Execution, who went and signed the deal, who went and inflated the prices. We're not talking about the design and the layout. The design and the layout was done.
Allegations and particular
cases. Come to the real facts.
Yes.
So anyway, in terms of execution, we do know. But listen, the high priest of corruption are well done. People who've been mentioned time and again, being investigated on all manners of things, from hospital tenders to land, to everything. So if it says
so
you take judicial notice. If you're on if you're a parent. For instance, Hussein Muhuru is the parent in this Jubilee coalition, and 5 of your PSs step aside. That is about bad parentage. It's not those people. You know, when you come, you have a family where half of your kids are all drug dealers and peddlers and drug abuse. You just have to realize that you're the problem to a certain extent. So you don't always point fingers at others. And one of the things Uhuru has mastered is the name of
and I don't know whether.
So
what happens?
Yes.
So what happens? So if it's a high priest, Sophia, I can see you probing the name.
Yes,
the
because
name is well known to the Kenyan public.
Who are the high priests?
People call him Mashamba. You look at page 24.
Excuse me, Hassan.
Look at page 24 of the list of shame. Yeah, so to speak, the one which was tabled in Parliament. Everywhere where there is a column, yeah, of who are the state officers. Yeah, who are the state? These were things that were interrogated in Parliament. Where there was the IEC, that time it was the IEC. They wrote former officials of the IEC.
Imagine.
Where everywhere else they mentioned names. Page 24, paragraph 20. You go to every other place, every other office. They mentioned the principal. Let's say you look at whatever office. Let's say Ministry of Roads. They mentioned
how many of those principals are from God?
When it came to the office of the
in that list, how many are from God?
We're talking very serious things. Don't worry about it. So office of the deputy president. They mentioned some young lady there who now stepped aside. So people ask you, why is it that you mention the principal officer everywhere and mention the subordinate in another
Chief
column?
of Staff?
And, yes.
Maybe just to cap on that one quickly, Sophia, you hear him trying to refer to a chief of staff who was mentioned and not mentioning the principal. Now, and this is just what I've said. How many times have you heard names like Karoli Omondi, whoever involved, being called there on allegations of corruption? And have you heard him say for one single minute that there was a principal to those names?
All right, let me ask this to you, Weda,
yes.
on IEBC chair, and the CEO, EACC, saying he's going to be investigated. He was here last week Thursday, and we asked him if he'd step aside, why he refused to step aside, and yes, he's been implicated on Chicken Gate. He said his name was not on the list. So now he's being investigated. Do you think Isaac Hassan should step aside?
I have always said that Isaac Hassan, my classmate and friend, has suffered the worst fate that is very common in this country, that Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga perceives you as his enemy. He will fight you, and you lose credibility. After the last elections, I think Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga set his eyes on the Chief Justice, William Mutunga, and Isaac Hassan. He has hit them so much, and with this wide support in the country, please, my younger brother, now you listen when your seniors talk.
When you're misleading us.
Please, when he decided to hit the IBC, it has been hit so hard that even if he continued, people will not have faith in it. So it would be necessary for him to step aside. Now, even the so-called high priest, the known enemy that Raila has focused his eyes on, the bitterness, for now, is the Deputy President Ruto. And he will use every occasion to hit at him, the way he has hit at IBC, the way he has hit at Willie Mutunga. He will do it. That is his characteristic. He's my elder brother. I know when he has venom against you. This time, he is a friend. When he was hitting Kalonzo Musyoka, the days when it was Kalonzo Musyoka's son to be hit, and Wetangula, and the rest, it was that hot. Now that they are on the same side, peeing outside, they rubbish everything else that is being done. But please,
come on. Let me
Go
tell
ahead, taking
you.
the discussion forward, Senator.
Let me just say something.
Briefly.
So that I correct my senior who wants me to listen. Now it's your turn. Listen carefully.
listening.
During the petition that Raila Odinga challenged the election of Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto, Isaac Hassan saw an affidavit. In that affidavit, he came short of calling Raila Odinga a loser. There are almost 6 paragraphs. Perennial loser, perennial complainant, perennial this, perennial that. At what point did Isaac Hassan, at what point did when did it turn and become that is Raila Odinga following Hassan? It's Hassan who is following Raila. And therefore, at the point where Isaac Hassan has forgotten that in a presidential election, he is a returning officer. You know, something happens. Isaac Hassan is a good lawyer.
Okay, to the point, should he step aside or not?
Who has forgotten that?
He should step aside. This man should have gone home yesterday.
Wamatangi, I ask you this. In terms of the government, because after the State of the Nation address, we saw the applause, everyone lauded the president's decision. Now we've gone back again to lack of confidence, to him being criticized, paying lip service and this war on corruption. What needs to happen now? Does he reshuffle? Does he fire a few people in his cabinet? What needs to be done?
Now, one very quickly on what my colleague Professor has just said, because I want to make sure that my colleague, my colleague there, I want to make sure that my colleague Senator Mutula gets it right.
Yes.
Now, the court fraternity must decide what is it that they want and they have against IEBC. I mean, they can't just be groping. You heard Raila yesterday speaking about the IEBC, the credibility of the commissioners. They were hired by Jubilee. And now again we have this issue about Hassan stepping aside. Now, the one thing, just 1 minute. The one thing that I want to underline here is very clear. Now, this must get straight into your heads, gentlemen, and your team. That elections are won in the ballot, not through propaganda. They did this the whole of last year and during the last term, until we almost went back to the abyss of fighting amongst ourselves. Because every time when we are facing an election, just about, they will start discrediting the commission. They will start creating doubts towards it,
and
because they see, Sophie, because they see serious incapability on their side, that they're not sure that they're able to win the election,
but
and so they have to create that doubt.
When you defend the IEBC, doesn't that add credence to their accusations that you're defending them before, because you always safeguard your interests?
If you look
Why
at
not allow for those processes to disband, so that then you don't seem to be hiding anything?
Listen to me first. Yes. If you appoint a commission, let them take oath and do their job. For goodness sake, leave them to do their work. For you as politicians, get down to the business of convincing the electorate that you can vote for us, so that we've got good policies. Okay. Now, if you win that war, then you won.
We need to move on to another subject. So I'll ask you this directly, a direct answer. Hold on. IEBC chair to stay, not step aside.
The IEBC chair, if he is named in corruption, that is provable, he should step aside. But if it is for the if it is for the shenanigans of satisfying money of the box, if it is for satisfying court, then he should stay put. But this is my answer to the question you asked.
You have not answered my question.
In relation to what you have just asked about what should the president do now that this shade of grey has been painted by our colleagues from the other side here, to make it look like the war on corruption is not on course. I want to affirm to anybody who is listening to us this morning that the war on corruption is on course. And what the president should do is keep his focus and not look back or sideways. Because, you see, this these games you see being played on the side shows have only one intention. Most of these guys you see who are not named there are already involved. They're culpable, some of them, and so they have to play by the side to make sure. Yes, absolutely. And that is what you find. Excuse me. On the in the code group. No.
Let me tell you something.
In the code fraternity, yes.
Let me tell you.
My director says no one is being heard. We are talking over each other, one at a time.
Let me tell you something.
Finish your point.
Yes, so I finish my point. And please, Senator Hassan Omar, let me make my point. You have time to make yours.
Excuse me. Not to make a point for 10 minutes,
now,
which nobody can understand.
all I'm saying is very simple. And please, you learn to listen. It helps you.
Come on.
Okay, I think you have made your point.
My point is this, Sophia. In the code fraternity, and I say this without blinking, there are hundreds of them who are involved from the last time when they started in government in corruption cases, and they would give anything to see this system collapse. In fact, they would be the major players to make sure that this commission does not succeed. When you see them complaining that commissioners are out of work, indeed they're celebrating, because if this war continues the way it is on course, they will be pulled from the sides.
Let me show you how a point is made now.
Yeah, please.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
And
that's
make the point.
That's the point how a point is made.
Make a truthful point.
Secondly, you say generally, just to end that, the leadership lacks the general capacity to lead this country, not on the war on corruption, not on security. These guys can't even fly from Nairobi to Dubai. So I think you realize that the general capacity to lead this country is not there. You keep having the bravado. The country is safer, is stronger in the state of the nation. The next week, Al Shabaab is killing our students.
You are now
so I think what happens is
that a good thing?
The truth is they lack the capacity to govern our country, and I think in the issue of corruption, if he let it run away, now he's playing catch up, and I think he's doing a very pathetic job in playing catch up.
All right, let's move away from corruption. We've spent 45 minutes on that. When you talk about security, we had Al Shabaab last week attack a village in Garissa. The Kenyan security forces have come out to say they thwarted that particular attack. Yet some of the residents are reported as having said this militiamen came in there and they spent quite a number of hours. 6 hours. We've had lecturing them on this anti-government narrative and rhetoric. They even put up a flag. What does this say to you, Ambrose?
Yeah, I think we cannot deny that the challenges of matters of security is still persistent. But we must look at where we are coming from and appreciate that it has been addressed substantially, but it should be addressed fully. You can see substantially means before it was here at the headquarters, at the city center, where everywhere you unsafe. That was addressed. And even when it was being addressed, Osanamar here was here up in arms.
You're saying Nairobi is safer?
It's relatively safer than it was. Yes.
Isn't Garissa as important as Nairobi?
No. I'm moving step by step. So, because this is a huge thing, it has to be addressed systematically. That's what I said. So Nairobi, when it was being addressed, I saw Omar was crying tears, but we moved on. And it has been on. So, looking at where we have come from, there has been substantial progress. But it's not a question of progress, it's a question of defeating Al-Shabaab. So there's still a lot to be done. That requires more resources that should come from the parliamentarians. In fact, it requires that you refund the illegal salaries you're earning so that we put it back to this. I can say that so far, in Kaiseria, this team has done a relatively good job. But there's still a lot of work to be done. If we got the support from all these people, all of you senators, especially on our salaries you're earning illegally, for which we'll prosecute you when you leave office, then we'll do well.
This gentleman has an issue with salaries. I don't even know. And one of his findings is going to contest.
And I hope he's earning one too.
The fact is, and I've said it here and I'll repeat it, that the Jubilee administration has its priorities upside down. the question of Nairobi and the question of our boundaries are two different issues if my learned friend and senior understands it. The boundaries of this republic are porous. And I'm going to repeat, now caps. Boundaries of this republic are porous. If somebody can get into the country 50 kilometers, have a cup of tea and then go back, others have spent 6 hours, even the fact that there was a person here for 2 hours or an hour is bad enough. And that is the reason why we have said, while the Jubilee administration insists that Kismayu is a point where you should guard more than the boundaries of this republic, is a question that they will have to address. The fact is that we share a boundary, Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia share a boundary, but you would never hear of Al-Shabaab in Ethiopia. Why? Because of something called no man's land. Nobody walks there. By the time somebody is crossing the boundary, drives unnoticed, 50 soldiers is a severe indictment on these people and on the government of Kenya in terms of what it is doing. And then what do? They are making an announcement. They have now found a department, which I saw on the newspapers, about Homeland Security. They want to create another ministry called Homeland Security. These guys are walking all over our boundary as if we were having a birthday party. What are these people talking about? You know, Garissa is still Kenya. Marsabit is still Kenya. When you are doing surveillance systems all over the place and you are launching a 1.3 trillion system, the fact is that you cannot have people walking around our border. It is, in fact, it is a matter that is a war factor. When somebody walks into your boundary carrying ammunition, it is something that is capable. You are supposed to declare a war on them.
All right. Yeah, I'll ask you, Matangi, on this Homeland Security question, because also the majority leader in the Senate, Kindiki, has a bill on the same. How different is this from what you already have as Interior Ministry? What is it proposing to bring? Because coordination has been a big issue, but still, if coordination is not working under Interior, which is Interior inside, one would seem to understand it's pretty much the same issues. Is it a case of them just trying, government trying to, have this ministry in place to comfort Kenyans that something is happening, but in the real sense it's shallow?
First, Sophie, I want to state it also clearly that the war on terror must be perceived for what it is. It is a national problem. If we at any one time approach this war on terror either with a political mind to it or looking for political mileage out of it, if we sectionalize this as somebody else's problem, not our problem because we are not in government, if we say it is a problem that has been brought because of those ones or these ones, I tell you we'll never win it. Now this is our problem, all of us, and we all agree. When the terrorists come here and attack any of our facilities, it is indiscriminate.
I think we all agree on that.
So,
let's move forward.
So when we speak about those terrorists coming to Yumbis and having their free time, first I want to declare that it is a sign that they are being defeated. Before, they would boldly come to Eastleigh. They're being defeated
by coming and sitting down and
before, they would boldly come to Eastleigh and throw grenades. They would come to the center of town.
So now that they're not coming to Nairobi,
now they're on their way, and they still have to show that they exist. That's why you find now they have now resorted to going to villages other than to where they were trying to show their might before. They came to Westgate, they came to other places.
Imagine if they had come and were there, say, for those 2 or 4 hours that's being reported. Imagine they come and killed and not sat to lecture. Would you still be saying at least they're moving out as they kill towards Somalia?
I'll tell you this. You see, the whole world over, the war on terror is an ongoing war. Even when it was started by America, the superpower of the world, in the Gulf region, even today it is still ongoing. Now what you have to do as a nation is to get smarter than the terrorists.
So Homeland is the smart option.
And what we have done, what government has done, and I would want to be this to all Kenyans, is now to start looking at the threat of terror with new eyes to ensure that we employ technology, that we bring in new ideas, and especially now like this, like the proposed Homeland Security, if it is going to be, because I know it is a thought that has been there. The concept is to ensure that we have a seamless operation between and amongst all security organs, bringing them all together such that we don't have a repeat scenario of what we had, for example, during the Westgate attack, whereby you have this command giving a different instruction and not copied by the other one. And Lastly, and most important, I paid a visit sometimes to Morocco, and we were having a discussion with some of their senior leaders as to how they have managed to put the war on terror at bay, albeit being a nation comprising of so many groupings, including Christians and Muslims. And one of the things that I noticed, which is very unique, is that their streets are patrolled by a united group of all defense forces. You have a policeman, you have a Navy person, you have an Army person, all in a group of 3 or 4 working together, patrolling and carrying out their beat. Okay. Now, what happens in this kind of case is that if you have any situation that must be dealt with, then it is copied across all the security organs. And if we can be able to replicate that here in this country and defeat the war on terror, then it is kudos for our government.
Senator Omar, is Homeland the way to go? What he's proposing?
Let me tell you, one thing is, ironically, Jubilee only wants us to be a nation when they're in problems. Only when they're having threats of terror, the corruption. Well, but what they do when there are no problems, they, fleece this country and institutionalize.
Let's focus on the issue.
So I think if you're making a national call, make it as an equitable call on all fronts of development, yes. Not only when you're in problems. But number 2,
including the port in Lamu.
Number 2. But
you have to be able to make your points.
He's trying to bring in.
Senator Omar.
Residents are complaining. The governor is always lodging whatever.
Senator Omar.
I saw you shaking your head every time Matangi was speaking. He's a very unconvincing fellow. I sit with him in Senate every day.
Oh my goodness.
And Ministry of Homeland sort out our security issues.
One thing is, these are tiers of operations that, for me, as long as they are targeted to improvement of the security management systems. But the problem is not about the security management; it's the incompetence that is characteristic. You see, you see Matangi giving a narrative of terrorism. You can find it for a fact that he understands nothing about it. He says, "Oh, the war that was started in the Gulf by the U.S. The war on terror is a bit of a war that is."
No, that was just an example. I know.
Yeah, so I mean, that said it done. The narrative, when the narrative, when people are advising a government and they said to be the ones who are making decisions on our behalf, and they have no idea about an issue. That's why we veer off. So I think they will come up with all these tiers. What they need is to have the competence, they need to have the sincerity, they need to have the capacity, and I think they need to also to professionalize the entire system.
And the cooperation.
They do not have to have you do not have to polarize the security machinery by wanting people who are close to you, friends, village mates, and stuff of that nature. So at the minute you diversify, you bring in the right input, you have the right sophistication, you have the right narrative, the counter narratives, then I think you're en route to solving the problem.
Yeah, because there are other issues when you're talking security, whether we saw the Ethiopian forces again crossed into the country a number of hours, and the commissioner, County Commissioner Marsabit, said that it was not an invasion, although some residents said they harassed individuals there. Again, the borders and all of this, the row that's potentially could erupt from this particular case. And that on one hand. On the other, we've been having stories in the past week of these young girls being reported to have moved to Syria, and all of this communication here and there. So this is a multi-pronged, there's just all manner of facets as far as security is concerned. And the government is coming up, we're hearing all of these proposals. Do you get a sense that there's a clear strategy, acknowledgement first of the issues and the challenges being faced, but more importantly, strategy that keeps the government and security forces ahead of the terrorists, ahead of the game, not playing catch-up?
I think we must admit that there has been challenges. And these challenges, if you look at it, you saw the Lamu attack. I think I was in this studio. And the security forces coming up to say this is something else. There has been a mix-up. There has been some level of disorganization. There has been something we have not gotten right. And that is what I'm saying, that looking at what has happened in the past, it seems like we are trying to get it right. We are yet to get it fully right. And we need everybody, including you and you, to get this thing right. So far, when somebody walks from Ethiopia, somebody walks from, even the mere fact that somebody walks from Somalia and warns people in Kenya is bad enough. How we are going to get it right, maybe we will depend on Kaiseri and everybody else, but something else needs to be done. If it is through having homeland security, if that will be something we'll try, and it gives us the answers, so be it. If it does not work, we must continue in the search for the correct answer. For now, we have not gotten the answer correct, and therefore we are vulnerable as a country.
All right.
Let me tell you, you know, when somebody says the government is trying, I begin to wonder whether when somebody took oath and said, I'm going to protect this constitution, and we gave them a sword, we told them, go and try to be a leader. The fact is, and I want to repeat to this gentleman, because we have suffered. My county lost 8 students. 8. Kitui, there's a lady called Rispa Mutindi. The father has not found her daughter. When you tell that person that you're trying to find it right, what are you talking about?
So what do you see
the
as
next
the
time
issue?
somebody else is going to die and you're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, we are still trying to be leaders of this republic. We didn't give them mandate to try. We gave them mandate to protect people.
So what do you see as the problem then?
The problem is that, you know, you have these musical chairs. One time it's Olelenku, you remove them, you put in Kaiseri. You know, then we tell them, your boundaries are not safe. Your boundaries are porous. They say CORD is playing politics. The Ethiopians march here, have a party, possibly, you know, blew a candle or something like that. The fact is, you know, you go back to the boundaries. You say, this is the problem with the, because, you know, this thing is multifaceted. If you look at how the rest of the countries are dealing with, for example, this problem about ISIS is all over the world. France, for example, attempted to deal with it. When the president attempted to shut down some sites, he realized the sites are in New York. In other cases, there are people who have been arrested at the airport after an attempt to go to Syria. What are we doing? Because that's one aspect. There's an aspect of boundaries. That's another aspect. There's an aspect of there's some terror groups of young people who we trained to deal with in Somali. They have moved back into the Republic. They have disappeared. Now, there are people who are now telling the public that their children have disappeared. They have never seen them. It's now 60, 70, 80 days. You saw what the majority leader has done over the weekend.
Yes, we want
about
to
the question of lists. You know, this is what is called PR with the Kenyan public, because it is obvious. And my learned friend Ahmed Nasser posted something immediately this Garissa attack happened, and it suggested that there's something, the problem is more internal than even external. And then when we say, give us a list of the persons who are known to be harboring, dealing, housing, and cooking for these terrorists, you say, I don't know anybody, anything. And that person is still a leader in this republic. That is what is called PR.
Let's talk about that list.
Lives.
Wamatangi, I'll come to you because we saw that press conference, you know, that we saw the leader of majority, Eden Duale, read that statement from the leaders from Northeastern, talking about this list. So it wasn't prompted by anyone. They, of their own volition, decided to come out and perhaps whatever it is that motivated that to show concern or their seriousness, you know, made that promise. Here we are, time has lapsed, then now he's coming around and saying, I don't know anyone in that list. And that has got him to get heat even from within. Kaiseri is saying, bring that list. The TNA chair is also saying, where's that list? Don't just say things. Where do you first stand? I'd want to hear on that, on Duale and the list.
On the issue of Duale, on the issue of the list, I want to say also clearly, like every other Kenyan, that indeed it is the Honorable Duale and his team who said that they will be providing and giving a list of the people who are involved or who could be implicit in terrorism. But remember that also he himself said that we have forwarded a recommendation. War on terrorism is a sensitive war. Sometimes you could name people. Once you name people, there could be repercussions. You could name people and they flee before they're arrested.
Gracious.
So it is upon him. If he has named people and forwarded that list, then well and good. If he's done it through the president. But excuse me, my friend, you have your own say. And like I told you. Like I told you, you two gentlemen.
So you're saying he will not announce these names because
if indeed he has not taken it through to the president using that recommendation that he said, then he can bring it to public. But that is at his own discretion, because he did not say that he's going to bring it to Mutula or to Omar or to Ford or to anyone.
The Interior Minister is saying produce those names. So there's no way that would have gone to the president, and the Interior Minister surely does not know. That sounds a lot like another line of diverting attention from the
once they have harmonized that position, because I don't think there is any conflict as far as that's concerned. Okay, once they have harmonized, then they would be able to know who has been named and who has not been named.
Let me say this. He's talking about lists that you cannot make public. The IG gazetted about 87 individuals and organizations and asked them to report to them before they are arrested.
Exactly.
You don't, you know, that's why today I'm so silent. I'm so distraught by arguments here. You know, sometimes when you play in the Premier League, you don't want them to start playing for a flower. But that's said and done. That's said and done.
Oh my goodness.
What's that said and done? I think my Dwale is a brother, and I have an extraordinary, a personal relationship based on family and stuff like that. But I want to ask him to deliver that list, because it's an undertaking they made, as you said, out of their own volition. The minute I saw it, I said, "Oh my God, that's a wrong strategy." Or the entire rhetoric after the Garissa attack was wrong strategy by the northern Kenya leaders. I have defended part of the position that we wanted to implicate him in terrorism. He's not a terrorist. I do not believe he's a good man in terms of his own personal and social profile. I do not at any moment believe that Duale is complicit or financial or anything in terms of terror. But if they had said that they were going to make a certain list, and it doesn't necessarily mean that list is people who are necessarily financing terrorism, but we have what I had one of the leaders from northern Kenya qualify to me what actually they meant. You know, there are all these young men and women in the Muslim community who've disappeared. Their whereabouts are not known. You saw those two beautiful girls who went to Syria, very distraught. Yeah, there is a young gentleman who's in Syria. There are a lot of families who are missing their
So they said
they
meant what?
So according to them, they were going to give an itinerary of these people so that we are quite conscious. Because you see, some of those people can slip back.
But they were very clear on the financials. They were not talking about people who are missing.
But for me, in my assessment, whatever they promised in public domain, they must deliver it. And I think Nkaiseri also has better ways of asking Duale. He should use his formal sanctions as a Minister for Interior through whatever agencies that they need. But I think my own assessment is that it's doing them so much harm that they need to deal with it once and for all. I think it's doing them a lot of harm. They're losing their authority and moral credibility. And it impacts on all of us, even as Muslims. And therefore, those false proclamations by them, which is a false start, really wrong rhetoric, I think now they need to either to know where they need to break off and come off with a bit of credibility.
And right now, Weda Jubilee should be seen to be reading from the same script, but now you're seeing all of this internal wrangles over this list. Surely
I tell you, I have said in this program, I keep on saying that when Duale speaks and when Duale keeps quiet, it should be treated the same.
I tell you. It's funny.
Trying to treat him differently, it's giving the president a bad picture and the administration a bad picture. People died and our hearts are bleeding.
Yes.
He came like a leader telling us, I know some of these people, I will tell you. If he was lying, he should come out and say, gentlemen, I spoke too soon. In my usual good nature, I was speaking. I remember when the terrorists were being flashed out of Italy, he even threatened to resign. He was mad. Now, when people died in his own constituency, again he was mad. He said, I will tell you, if there is no such list, he should clearly come out and say, gentlemen, I spoke too soon, I'm very sorry. But otherwise, it's giving fodder to Hassan Omar and Mutula Kilonzo Jr. now to continue hitting the president, Uhuru here. Even the gains that we have made so far now cannot be seen. You people, go and tell him, because I've seen in the Senate, as you leave Senate to Parliament, there's a lot of noise being made. Please tell him that when it comes to security, our hearts are bleeding. We do not want politics.
Let me say this. Ambrose Weda is my senior, and he understands the position of Adan Duale. The position is in the Constitution. When he says that when he speaks and when he keeps quiet, you should treat the same, you start to wonder, a leader of majority should be treated the same when he speaks and when he doesn't speak? It's serious. But the fact of the matter is this. KTN had a beautiful expose about this. You went all the way to Garissa, you analyzed some details, you even had details of why there was a metal detector that was removed, you interviewed the OCPD, there was a lady who was implicated about carrying firearms, etc., etc. What is so difficult about getting to the bottom of what is the problem in Garissa? And therefore, the fact that a leader can give hope to Kenyans, because when all these parents of these children that we have buried, they know in their hearts that they will never get their children back. When a leader gives hope to Kenyans, that we might, for a reason, find one perpetrator of some of these things, you give them false hope. When you turn around, this, if he was saying this in Makueni, there will be trouble. He retreats to Garissa and makes a statement somewhere where all of us cannot, pluck him out and deal with him. The fact is that you then create a sense of despondency. And unlike what Weda says, when Duale speaks, you see Uhuru, you see Ruto. And therefore, because he represents them as a majority leader, you must take this matter seriously. And as Hassan Omar has said, he might be a good person. But every time you make these statements, you create the wrong impression that the Jubilee administration is playing cat and mouse with Kenyans about things that you cannot attempt to do so, because 147 Kenyans, young Kenyans, are dead and their parents buried their children without identifying them. We must tell them. When you attend those funerals, you don't even know whether to bury yourself, because it is an outcry. And therefore, I'm pleading with them. I'm pleading with them. The president ought to deal with Duale and ought to deal with him the way I saw him dealing with that list when he was in parliament. And tell him, Duale, issue a press conference today and say, Duale, I've given you an ultimatum. I want that list. And that list should come as a Sophie,
one thing that we are united about is that as a country, we have been bleeding. We all feel the same about the loss of those people that we lost in Garissa. And we can't run away from it. We must deal with the issue of terrorism and the loss that it has occasioned us. But, the point I want to make clear is when Duale said that he's going to provide that list, indeed, we are all very hopeful that he was going to do that, and it is going to help this country. Now, what me and you and everybody else does not know is that, did he say that I'm going to make that list available publicly? And probably that's the argument you would make. And in my conviction, because I'm serious about what I'm saying, and in the fight, this is not any issue. So do you know something
that we don't, that you want to let us know this morning?
Let me complete this, Sophie, because like I've said, this is a very, very serious matter that goes down to the heart and grain of who we are as a people. I know that if it was me sitting in Duale's position and I have real names and suggestions that I want to make, sometimes maybe my neighbors or people whom I do business with or people who know me or anything, if I was to name them to such a serious list, then I would have my discretion. Do I name these people quietly, such that they are dealt with, if that's my intention, or do I want to get the public accolades and come with a list?
Not you in this because you also cannot confirm to us that Duale has done so.
Because Sophie, the point I wanted to make is very simple.
Yes.
You see, Duale can get all our claps and all our allulations. He could just have any names and bring them and say this is the list. I mean, how do we know that indeed he has not done it to make sure that those people are gotten? And that's what I'm saying. This is a matter that goes to the heart of us Kenyans. We want to see this problem dealt with, but let's not play politics with it. Let's also not try to point fingers before we know.
But who played politics in the first place?
But I think I agree with you in this regard. Let me be honest now. Let me sometimes speak in a manner that is a bit heavy. I know these things touches on the core of Muslim-Christian relationships in this country. Let's not toy around it. It's not a joke. That's why I'm so angry with some of the rhetoric that they are not able to see through. Rather you might as well give an opinion that maybe Weda does not agree with. It's not easy to be in the minds. Just try to picture yourself in the minds of a Christian parent whose son or daughter has been butchered when you are listening through the phone. And we saw those stories here.
Yes.
And those recollections, I saw an old man saying he had been working in a stone area, so doing on KTN, and his only hope was his child. And then somebody just goes and puts a bullet in his head. And then you cannot say this is politics anymore. It cannot be a matter of secrecy anymore.
No.
The country is upset. You know, I sometimes also know that what I say must be very measured. I live in a coalition, and my brothers in the CORD coalition are very kind to me. Sometimes they even call me and say, son, we didn't like that. And you need, the Jubilee attacks one another much more easily. We don't, if you realize we have a CORD internally. But what you do is, it's a very, very somber thing. So I think we also, as leaders, we have to also internalize some of these issues from a perspective. And not if it was your own just brother, forget even Muslim or Christian.
Yes.
And somebody just, so you need to follow your statements with responsibility. You need to take responsibility of the utterances you make. That's all I'm trying to say. I have no issues with Duale myself. I defended him in this forum where even Ambrose was speaking against him. I said, he is our brother. I do not believe he's a terrorist. I cannot want to implicate him in any of these issues. But you see, we are in a very difficult situation as a country right now. We just can't get away with carelessness.
And gentlemen, that is the way it is this morning. We'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Ambrose Wada, who's a lawyer, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Makueni Senator, Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator, and Hassan Omar Mombasa Senator, also Secretary General of the WIPA.
Hey, and
we're going for a rally right now.
Vice Chair WIPA.
And Vice Chair WIPA.
I'm inviting you to, you said the bill has good elements. We are right now going to Machakos, Mulumutisia Stadium for Agokoa Kenya rally. Right now in Machakos, if you have time.
So where
come and listen.
No, Kenya does not need to be okolewa. Kenya is already okolewa.
Ninyi mko katika bomoa Kenya, sisi mko katika okoa Kenya.
Unaokoa nchi yenye iko huru.
You guys are rowdy lots.
Na kazi ya kuokoa sio ya hao watu wa siasa. Kazi ya kuokoa ni ya kanisa. Hao watafute kazi nyingine.
Kama nyinyi mnabomoa Kenya, sisi
lazima tuokoe Kenya. Tutamaliza. Thank you very much. That is the way it is. And do stay with KTN, because after this short break, we'll have international news, and also Michael Gitonga will be coming up with Women in the Red, an organization that is giving women a voice where they'd otherwise not have one. You want to stand by for that and much more right here on KTN.